Right, welcome back to the Ram Revival. Where we left off, we were very rudely interrupted by some defective brand new parts and some leaks. Got that taken care of. Ran into some other issues of such an innocent little episode. We were just going to put a cold air kit on and load up a startup tune, and boy, that escalated quickly. A lot of time has passed, but we're back on it. And basically, again, what we tried to do at the start of that episode before we found the leaks was that massive little box there. I've gone ahead, I think we probably showcased it, but basically 4 screws are actually number 3 Phillips, where you see those gold nutserts. That houses the assembly with the filter, so that's going to tuck in from that side. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't really like 2 things about this. Number 1, where it nests into the fender. Anyone familiar with these trucks, kind of a cool setup. The duct could have been better, but you got sort of like the accordion duct that ran, you know, from your filter box off the throttle body over to the fender well. And if you don't know, that right there feeds cold air, in theory, through the grill, through the fender, right into your engine. The factory piece snapped in really tight into the fender cutout, right? This one, not so much. It just kind of if we have an oval slot here, you know, like we're coming in not near the same dimensions, and I feel like maybe going in too far and blocking airflow, but it is what it is. The next thing that's kind of a problem is installing this thing. My previous air box on this was aftermarket as well, because again, I hated that setup from the factory. Lots I liked about it. Servicing the filter was the worst part, and sadly that's why you need to take it apart, so it got replaced. We went at the time, again, this goes back years, and this was really expensive and couldn't afford Volant, even though I liked what they were doing, you know, especially with the Snorkel duct and everything. So we went with Spectre, whatever it might be, like cheapest thing, but actually pretty good kit, I think. Main thing it did for me wasn't the intake sound. It wasn't if we picked up 2 or 3 horsepower. It was I could service the filter easier. That's literally it. Looked better. I liked it. Yes, you can hear the filter on intake. Some people hate that. I don't mind it. But the biggest thing, again, was just I could service the air filter easier than that. So with this, the biggest problem right now is it installs. This is just slid into the fender. And you're like, okay, we'll throw some bolts into it through the wheel well, right? That's how Spectre installed. That's how so many aftermarket cold air sort of install their box over there, and it works great. This uses a plastic push pin. You think, oh, that's not too bad, you know, that'll work. I think some of the aftermarkets do that too with bolts. And yeah, they have that and bolts. This is just a little plastic, it's a push pin, Christmas tree, whatever you want to call it. And I'm okay with that. It's just like inaccessibility zone, right? I don't, you know, maybe you've got children or your wife, you know, or maybe you've got small hands, you like snake in there, it's not a big deal. It's a problem, especially, you know, if the truck was lowered, if it was 2-wheel drive, we could probably get in easier. With a 4-wheel drive, like, this is super awkward, but basically we're gonna do that. Let's just come over here, shall we? This right here, that's what I was looking for. That's what's gonna hold that air box in place, and getting this in there, not gonna be fun. The other thing I've done, just here right before I started recording, I threaded that in. I did not drill, I did not tap. That comes from Volant. They just don't install the fitting, probably in the event that that catches or snags or breaks off or something. So literally just threaded it in, hand tight. I get it, okay? There's a nut right there. You could put a wrench on it, you could put pliers on it, you could bear down. It's plastic. You have a plastic fitting, you got a plastic piece just going into you. Hand tight is fine. Now this, I thought, oh, where did I put that? It's been a while. Well, luckily, again, this is why you label stuff. Number 1, I knew what this was, but number 2, if I didn't, it would tell me. This right here, air inlet side to PCV, positive crankcase ventilation, right? Your valve cover grommet deal. So that tells me that. Again, factory had the gear worm clamp there. I plug hoses when I can. And then right here on the other side, you can see where I wrote it. PCV, well, it's kind of blurry, PCV to cold air. So that tells me what I need to know, and I can get the exact same orientation and everything. That's actually going to plug in here on this side, assuming it's the same hose size. We'll find out soon. And then right there, we sort of upgraded the grommet. Hopefully, the new PCV valve will work. And then the other thing we've got to do, I don't even think the instructions mentioned, is that. See that little dangling thing right there? We got to put an IAT in this. What is IAT, if we've forgotten? Intake air temperature. Kind of important, right? Or a computer-controlled vehicle. So we've got those connections to do, but the first thing I have to do, which I won't be able to film, is get that stupid push pin in there. And again, the only real way to do it, in my opinion, is to come in from this side. Again, maybe if you're taller, maybe if it's two-wheel drive, this is just an awkward height for this thing, but I'm going to try to make that happen. Once this is secure, I won't have to worry about it flopping around in the engine bay. And we'll pick up with the other things. But yeah, a lot of real world time, unfortunately, between these episodes. Life gets in the way, working, 8 to 14 hours a day, mostly leaning in the 12-ish range. We'll do that. Took on a couple other projects for people along the way, and your personal stuff gets kind of slid around, and next thing you know, like a significant chunk of time has passed, and it's real sad. But I'm gonna start trying to right the ship here, get this thing buttoned up, because we're so freaking close. Really, this, the leak, and then having to take the stereo out for the HP tuners, that really pissed me off. I'm not gonna candy coat that one. That just pissed me off. So yeah, anyway, we're back on it. We're gonna try to get this thing knocked out, so let's get this taken care of. All right, so again, my apologies, can't really showcase this just to how awkward it is, but we got the push pin in, and that's literally all that holds that box in. The problem that we've got now is kind of twofold. Guess there's two separate issues. Number one, little piece of tape there, IAT, intake air temperature. If you remember way back when we pulled the kegger, just almost right there behind the alternator, if memory serves me correct, that just tucked into the manifold, right? Maybe not ideal placement. If you're trying to maximize things, you might want it to be a little more accurate. I think you kind of get some heat soak there, but we got to locate that somewhere. It'll hopefully be in this tube. The problem we may have is we don't have a ton of extension. I'd kind of like it to be a little more discreet than this, if you see the yellow plug there, but we'll work on that. I have a brand new IAT for it. Plastic tube, we should be able to just drill close and thread it in. There'd be a better way of doing it, but that would involve parts we don't have, and I'm not sure where to ascertain them. So luckily it is all plastic, so maybe that would work to our advantage there. Once we do that, this PCV valve, we'll have to route that at some point, and then we'll have our breather line we'll need to get sorted out. The thing holding all that up, you're like, well, just rip that little carb cover off and, throw down the air hat. Well, there's a problem there. We straightened this gasket out. That thing came in super crooked. But right there, beautiful Hughes big gulp there at the blue blades. The issue is, if you look right there between them, above the finger, you've got a provision for your stud, right? Your quarter 20 hardware. I don't know what they've done, but they've sent something that is not the correct thread pitch. I actually contacted them this morning, and they said it's a known issue, so that made my life super easy. I don't have to argue with them or figure out what metric thread count it is. They're just like, yep, known issue. Fill out a warranty claim, we'll get it headed your way. So that is cool. That's about it. That's kind of what's holding me up right now. In order to place this optimally, I would need that kind of preferably anchored. Maybe we can fish it around and get a good feel for it. But yeah, it's mainly just some loose buttonings, kind of like that. So that's kind of where we're at, sort of a standstill on that front. But as soon as I get some parts or mock it up and feel confident it's accurately placed, we'll go to town. Might be help if you know what I'm talking about here. Parts we just referenced, this sort of offset S stud, whatever you want to call it, and this machine nut. Nice piece, but it's aluminum. It's possibly part of the downturn. This thread is not compatible with what we've got on the throttle body. That would be a very, very unfortunate thing to realize. I sort of realized it was a problem just trying to spin this thing on. So again, like I said, those are the parts that Volant will be sending our way. And now it is a waiting game. I do think I have, odd as it may seem, an offset stud, but I seriously doubt it's those dimensions. You could easily bend this. It's just I kind of need the nut. And we could possibly tap it, but I feel like this is too close to 1/4-20. So anyway, the parts are coming. If I figure something out in the meantime, we'll make do with that. I've also considered just throwing the Spectre back on there, which sucks because I put the push pin through. But we may do that. Who knows? We just kind of need to get this taken care of. So let's move on. All right, so I found my offset, and it is way too long and not near wide enough, not big enough of an offset. Sorry if there's fan noise here, but grabbed the Stavilla Stubby. Why? It was the closest PH3 I could think of, and we're going to use that to put these screws in. Of course, they've got 4 positions, 90 degrees on the circle. I've got the correct parts again coming from Volant, and I've also sized up the PCV valve versus their line. That's essentially 11/32. Their big giant hole is 5/8. You do the math, that's not quite compatible. I don't have plastic reducers here, sadly, so we're going to try to figure something out there. But real quick, I'm just going to button this thing up and go to town. Job well done. What we've got now is right here. It's important to kind of document this while we can. You'll note you've got your silicone boots. I want to highlight this just in the event that I or someone else in the future needs to know this. 78 to 102 millimeters and 3 1/16 to 4 inch is going to be the range on these clamps. These are actually nice clamps. I think they're Breeze US made. You'll note this sidewall is smooth. I've got to go fast because we're about to time this card out. This one, the sidewall is not smooth. It's kind of got like this bubble in the middle, if you will. That's why it's kind of sitting wonky. That is the piece that's going to go here to the air box. So again, just wanted to highlight that real quick. Alright, so I got 44 seconds. We'll try to do this a little better. For whatever reason, that part number was the bag over this. You'll note, hopefully you can kind of see that bellow. If not, when you look in there, it's almost just like a bell coupling as opposed to just something smooth. This will be for the ram air tube. You may or may not have bought that. This again will go from the air box that we just buttoned down to this tube that will go to the throttle body. They're Breeze stainless steel clamps again, 3 1/16 to 4 inch and 78 to 102 millimeters. They are stainless, they are US made, and it will take a 5/16 nut driver. Alright, so here we are. It's kind of not had any free time at all. Trying to remember where we left off, but that is incorrect. It's at the time I just knew that it was the incorrect thread. It's like some metric pitch instead of SAE, should be 1/4-20. And contacted Volant. They said, hey, it's a known issue, we'll get you the right thing out. I was not expecting to see that. So I was thinking I'd see the same shape, right? And I've got to now figure out if that actually fits or not, so that's going to be interesting. Also in the Volant kit was this. I brought up to him, I'm like, hey, factory, PCV is like 11/32. It's not 5/8 certainly. That kind of just fell on deaf ears. They're really good about this, and that just kind of went unanswered. I don't know if they wanted like a new request. I would assume they would have been reading the emails, but whatever. So this is pre-drilled for 5/8 right in their tube, so it's kind of like a done deal. I've basically got to utilize that. And right here we have our adapter. That's going to take me down, I guess it's half, I should say, and that'll take me from half to 3/8. And I decided to go, I did buy some straights just in case, but in my opinion, after kind of mocking the thing up, I was like, hey, if I have a 3/8 barb coming out at 90 degrees, it's going to be shorter, sweeter, just better all around, right? Next problem I have, PCV hose, which is surprisingly difficult to come by, and you do want PCV hose if possible, because if you just run standard hose you've got sitting around, it's probably going to collapse with vacuum, and that won't be good for a PCV system. And, all I have, like old school Chrysler, is 11/30 seconds, and I was having to use, even back when I bought this, I literally had to settle for transmission cooler hose. It's got a really nice sidewall on it, won't collapse. Case in point, if I open it up, see that braid in there? This is just a lot stronger of a sidewall than you typically see with standard hose. But problem is, that's 11/30 seconds. I could probably have made that work, but 3/8 would be better. I requested I had to buy some hydraulic oil at AutoZone, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to see if they've got PCV hose. Of course they didn't, and I told him I'd take transcooler hose. This is what he sold me. Duralast, I guess the TOC, transmission oil cooler, is all I could figure. I'm not super confident with this coming out of China, but the good news is I only need, like, I'm talking nothing of this. I mean, this would be surplus, right? So if this does blow out or, collapse or something, I've got a few more runs with it. But essentially, what all this means is I've got the parts that I need to get the cold air kit installed, and that's, again, kind of what we're wanting to do here. So quick update for you. I'll now move in and get all that set up, and we'll take it from there. All right, so back to the bench here. You can easily see these are radically different, right? You have the original piece that was sent with the kit, and it stops well short of this one. Similarly, if we try to put them on the same plane, the same rough trajectory, you'll note it's off, right? It's total different A to B type of a thing there. Problem I've got, I just took this up to the top of the truck, right? Draped over the fender well, tried to get it installed. You can't. And I thought, maybe if I pull back the hood seal, I'd have room. You don't. The wiring harness, maybe you could pull that off. I'm pretty sure I just run into the plastic of the cowl panel. I'm not taking a cowl panel off a truck to put an offset filter hook, right? So all I know to do is either buy some rod, which I think luckily I've got 1/4-20, and bend it, or I had this in my part stash. And as fate would have it, now it's radically different than what was originally included, right, in terms of the bend and the final trajectory, everything along those lines. It's also significantly longer. That's like 3 to 4 times the thread. However, if we come in here and sort of mate these up, you'll see, even though this one takes like 290s to come back straight, and that one just has a offset angle, they're almost the same angle. Now the problem with this, I can't install it either because it's simply too tall. So one of the greatest things about these cheap calipers is this, and what this is the piece of steel coming out the back. If you've got really nice calipers, I don't care if they're digital, if they're dial, whatever they may be, they probably got a nice little step, really good piece of steel, steps on it, right? This is cheap. It's like a literal piece of rod, and what that allows me to do is go places where the fancy ones can't. Okay, and so we can come in here into the throttle body, which this is not off the truck obviously, but it should be the same thing. You'll note we've got our depth, and if we look right here, it's just past 3/4 of an inch. Another low buck way of doing this is you take a Sharpie and you thread this thing in all the way. That is what I did right there. And if I spin this out of the way, this is running into all kinds of obstacles, but do you see where this rod is winding up right there at that black line of my Sharpie mark? So we've kind of double, measure twice, cut once, right? So we've sort of doubled up on what we think it should be, and since that's just in my part stash, and quite frankly, if I contact Volant again, trying to get the right parts sent out, we're going to lose a day or two, and then they take a while to pack it, and then it takes forever to come. So that's a long, drawn-out process. We're just going to try to work with what we've got. So that's what we've got. I'm thinking it's always hard to cut thread when you want it to go somewhere. So I will have to use this first cut into the throttle body, otherwise I would have the same problem. I'm thinking I might use bolt cutters, probably our little Gedores. you can saw it. It's easy to cut this stuff. That's not the hard part. Hard part is just getting it squared back up good, and I do not want to gum up these threads. I'd rather ruin that right, the finish nuts. So I'm going to get this cut, see if we can't get something threaded in the truck, because I'd like to have this thing sort of rigidly mounted before we drill for the IAT. Man of the hour right there, but unfortunately I just don't get a super clean cut with these. Again, the end goal would be you got something just buttery smooth you can thread right in. Cannot do that. It would be a terrible idea to attempt to thread that into your throttle body. What I like to sacrifice is our nut right there for the filter. So that end and this end both kind of cut roughly the same, sort of just like pyramids there in the middle. Hopefully you can see that. I don't have the tripod over here, so I can't focus too well. But I'm going to take that over to the grinder, and then we'll just kind of clean the threads up, and we should have something that we can utilize. Alright, so what does a 1/2 inch wrench do in here if we've got 1/4-20 stuff that should be 7/16? Well, one of those nuts is not like the other, and it's not like those two either. So those two came with this little stud that I had, and that one is one of my mini 1/4-20 standard hex nuts. That one above it's special. Just recently got that Mac Tools Rethread Kit, and turned out to be a good thing because it allowed us to fix that. So, again, without the pistol resistance, the tripod here, can't really go to town, but you'll have to take my word for it. This now threads fantastic. Let's see if I can set that up real quick. Alright, so right here, if I bring you back, not the easiest thing to do, you know, one-handed, but all the way. Not that we need that, we're only concerned about the end. You'll just have to take my word for it. When you see this nut spin right off the end there, she did good. So, would my El Cheapo kit probably have done that? Sure, but it was nice to get to put that one into use on something important. So, now what I'm going to do is see if I've got enough clearance to actually spin this thing in the truck. I'm not sure that we will, but we won't know until we try. And I'll tell you what, it's amazing how difficult this is to do one-handed, but as you can see here, the old test holly spins right in. So 1/4-20, that's what we needed. We'll see if we've got enough clearance at this point. Alright, so this wing nut is flipped upside down. That is roughly the height that's interfering and keeping me from spinning this into the throttle body to see if it even works with the frickin' air hat, which remains to be seen. Looks like the offset, if this center hole was the throttle body, we would need the offset to spin this way towards the driver's side fender. But what I want to do before that shimmies around too much, I'm just going to go ahead and lop that thing off, because again, there's not much I can do. I've already pulled the seal. I think we could disconnect the harness. That's a lot of a pain, and there's so much dirt there. And again, it would just be difficult to service, difficult to deal with at some point in the future. So I'm going to lop this off. We'll probably rinse and repeat, have to fix the threads, and hopefully then know if this is going to function as an appropriate angle offset. Alright, late night here, no idea where we left off, but this thing is mocked up for two reasons. Number one, so we can kind of mock where we want to drill for the IAT on the tube. Number two, so we can kind of test fit the PCV fitting, I should say. And then kind of an auxiliary reason, just to get that stud in place. So we're still going to have to bend one up. Kind of got like a proof of concept, and I just need to dial it in. So there it is. Again, this kind of awkward stuff. It's really hard to film, but basically just connecting the PCV and getting a good location for the IAT in relation to the short stock harness. Weapon of choice is this old thing, and look at this. This is one of those things you don't really appreciate it till you do it, but I think, despite that looking like a blurry line, we might have one of the cleanest cuts ever, at least that I've done, on threaded rod. We'll see if we get lucky. Alright, that's just not going to focus well, so we'll just stay back here. But there's the cut. I genuinely think, I mean, this is clean. Let me set you here. Grab this thing. There's like a jagged edge I have. Yeah, buddy. that is really rare to pull this off. It's a little thing sometimes, but yeah, pretty sweet. Again, I have not filed that or anything. I mean, that was a clean freaking cut. It took some time, but it was clean. Didn't gall anything up, so super happy. Just for kicks and giggles, we'll set that back down and let's see if I can thread it on the end of the rod. That means we would have had a 2 clean side cut. Oh, you're kidding me. Look at that. Super freaking cool. I mean, that, again, this is a minor thing in the broader scope, but it's really cool to have just whacked that off with a hacksaw. Done nothing. I haven't chased the threads, haven't filed it, nothing, and have both sides ready to go. The biggest burr was on this side, but that's just kind of where he quit getting to cut. But dadgum, that's cool. So anyway, now I have to turn that into a basically longer version of what was included and a shorter version of our test piece. So we'll go try to make that happen. Alright, not sure you can see it real well, but right about there is a black line, and if you come up right to where that handle comes down, I've got a second black line. I cut this to 6.5 inches. I basically wanted 6. I felt like that would get it done. The piece that was included that's close was 1.75 inches basically. Not quite that, it's some metric junk, I believe. But I'm not super proficient with this thing, but I believe right there ought to get me kind of where we want to be. The critical part is going to be the 2-inch in the middle, because that's your offset. Obviously we need it to be longer, if you will, from the throttle body up towards the cowl, but none of that matters if we don't get the 2-inch center section. So that's what I'm going to shoot for, and we will see how it turns out. Alright, so again, hopefully you can at least see the black line there at that peg. If you note, she ain't straight anymore, we're going up. And what I do, that corner, there's no degree wheel or anything on this, but I just use common sense, and I assume that that corner right there would roughly allow me to bisect it with that threaded rod, and it means we should be close to 90. And if we've got a 90 there and we come 2 inches and we got a 90 here, we'll have 180, and that means it'll be straight-ish. Hopefully. Again, kind of sad, like somebody ought to put a degree wheel on these, but anyway, I'll try to get this squared up, center the two as best I can, and hopefully have something functional here in a few seconds. Alright, so I have a square over there. I can't really freehand everything I'm needing to, but this is the piece I'm trying to match, and if we get it over here, try to line it up. I think we're kind of close. It doesn't look like it in this angle because things move, but just run with me. We're going to see what we get. Alright, so hopefully that looks a little bit better to you. You're probably very concerned prior to making that bend, but I think we mimicked it fairly well. We're a little bit longer here. The main length I had longer, again the 6.5 versus just shy of 6, I guess, is up top. Again, we can trim that off, whatever we need to do, thread it all the way in the throttle body. But I basically need to remove the sample and finish the bend on the top end, get it as square as we can, and see what we've done. God, it's so hard to do with one hand. Just take my word, it's pretty square minus the bend, and we're going to go test fit this sucker after we chase the threads just to be safe. Alright, so threads are chased, everything threads on beautifully, it goes into the sample throttle bodies. We're back to this old song and dance that is not threaded in, it's like turned like an 1/8 of a turn, and the reason for that is this, the obstructions. Classic obstructions. Now the question is, how much of that can we lop off and that still clear the top of the air hat? Obviously, having this thread in and fit beautifully and clear obstructions means nothing if it doesn't also come through that hole and have some sort of a nut on top to hold it down. So that's going to be another project. It's gotten late. I'll probably have to pick up here next time, but slight progress. Alright, so Nightmare continues here. Somehow able to not face plant into the engine bay or fender. while the stool continues to slip. I don't know, like I guess the rubber feet are wearing out or something. But trying to hold up and back that split loom harness, and of course the split loom is down, which ordinarily wouldn't be a problem, but that's right where that excessively long stud stands out that we just made. And what I've got here, this is the Volant included filter nut that of course had to be completely chased because it was also junk. And I've made a black line there. That's sort of like the target. I also have a dress-up piece I sort of checked. It's one of those 1/4 20, 5/16, 18 combo things to cover everyone, make them happy. And it just basically the same height. So that point there is where I feel pretty good I could cut and eliminate some issues, hopefully, in terms of setting it. I'd like to leave a little bit of a overage just in the event that I want to actually run a 1/4 20 nut on the throttle body side to kind of lock that in place. The thing is, this is just really not a good setup. Like, I'm not gonna lie, the clamp thing that Spectre, whatever you want to call it, had, I kind of think that was a better system. This, maybe it's because it's 4-wheel drive, maybe it's because it's an off-road, maybe this is just piss poor engineering, maybe it's a combination of all three, but that's bad fitments. You don't want to run an offset there, and it's just, with the cowl and the lack of clearance, I don't know what anyone was thinking, if they were thinking. That seems to be the most likely thing. So we do have the elbow in. I can't remember if I've shown that. And then I constantly mark it. You can see the glowing green highlighter color there. That's our IAT. I'm sort of thinking I'm just going to come in straight up from the bottom and hopefully then from the front have access to the clip. I don't know. Kind of just have to do this stuff, and again, I don't have a film crew, it's just me, but that's what we're doing. The good news for you, dare you follow in these footsteps, or simply buy this fantacular kit that's cobbled together by people that stop responding to emails. I'll have an exact length for you, and then assuming you have to make your own fastener, you at least will have something that's field tested and should save you a little bit of time. So I'm going to pull all this back out now and then get it cut down, hopefully for the final time. Alright, so this little thing has turned out to be quite the pain. If you look at the threads, this is going to be basically 1/4 NPT, so 1/4-18, and one would think, beautiful little plastic tube there, it would just thread right in, right? You just drill your hole out and thread this in. Not so easy. I have tried and tried to get that thing to cut its own threadway, and it just will not do it. The funny thing, the ironic thing, the plastic fitting threaded right in. This one just won't do it. So last night, if I can find it in my hoodie pocket, I ran and picked this up. That's right. It's very, very challenging to get a pipe tap from a parts store, but we pulled it off, and I'm hoping I'll be able to just start threads here and then hopefully run that thing in. If you look at the profile, it's not, of course, that it's recessed, it's just that I think the way that it starts is just kind of holding it up. So I'm going to run that thing in there. Hopefully that takes care of this and we can move on. Alright, so centrally drilling tool from O'Reilly's. How did it do? There you go. Tried going with a wrench and it just would not want to stay. Of course, it's kind of hard to keep centered when you're using a non-ratcheting wrench. So, weapon of choice, the beautiful Nipros, and then right there, the semi-deep Koken. That was a perfect fit, 3/8 if you're curious. What I wanted to highlight here, the packaging, I was intrigued by this when I bought it last night. I don't know if it's going to come through, but right there in fine print below the barcode, which is super blurry. Check this out, made in Japan. You're like, sweet. You know, what did that thing cost? It was $6.99. You're thinking, that's a steal. I would agree, but then the caveat there, made in Japan or India. And, no offense against India, but in terms of a tap, I would prefer Japanese steel and machining. But what is this, you ask? gloriously stamped here on the back that did not face out the packaging. It's made in India. Go figure. But apparently some of what Century does must be there. We'll have to, I've never used the line before. But yeah, we've got that in there. It got the job done. It is very sad we had to buy a $7 NPT tap just to cut threads for a frickin' sensor, but that's what we had to do. So now I'm going to take that thing out and hopefully get the IAT in place and find out that we drilled it perfectly and the harness is hidden and it's in a great location and we get more power and we don't cripple our fuel economy and all is right in the world, but we won't know until we spin that out. Ah, what fell and ruined the reveal? I don't know. Probably something. Oh, safety glasses. It's fine. So right there, got her down, got her cinched in place. Happy with it. I got really lucky because instead of having to dig out a stubby, ratcheting wrench, 3/4 are all too long. What I was able to do, this right 1/2-inch drive deep. See how there's no like step well? A lot of people like to have the shallow broach, so like your nut sits right here at the top. This is like a chasm, all right? And that worked beautifully because I don't have a specific sensor for that, sensor socket, I should say. And so it cleared everything perfectly. None of the chromes I have in the cart did. This one worked, and there we go. So all I got to do now is clear off some of my markings and get ready to set this thing down. I've also got the gasket sitting over here, and I'm hoping that I didn't cut the stud too short because I forgot how thick that stupid thing is. Also note here, you're like, man, did you put that on a 3/8 drive ratchet? What is that? That is the super cool Hazet, which has the 1/2-inch head in the 3/8 body. That's good stuff right there. But anyway, I'm going to quit rambling, and we're going to see if we can't stick this thing on. And I've got it a little, we've got play either way. That way I can dial in the connection. With that terminal, the reach is really good here, but if you have it clocked wrong, you'd be straining the harness. So I've got a little bit of slack in there so I can adjust it perfect. And the end goal is to make the harness, hopefully not an eyesore, kind of blend in and not something that catches your attention. So let's see if we can pull that off. All right, honorable mention to those NWS Hose Cutters. I think I've told in the past they work incredibly well. Got a really good buy on them. And again, if you're just getting like rubber hose, surgical tubes, stuff like that, really, really nice to have that as opposed to like a box cutter or a cable cutter, type of a thing. That way if you got like nasty, trans fluid or something inside, you don't have to worry about it. But this was way more complicated than it should have been, in part due to bad fitment and missing parts and fail to follow through from the OEM manufacturer and whatnot. But it is currently looking like that. So beautiful thing right here. I'll have to put the seal back. That will kind of mask the knurled nut. There is, when I say there's like no clearance there is no clearance there. I shot back the throttle body, again, because of all the dust. If you look at that seal there, the bottom of it, again, a lot of second-gen Rams, if you weren't the original owner, didn't have one, there's supposed to be a cowl seal, and I can't tell you how many of them I see, especially Cummins, that drive around and they do not have that, so it really sucks. But that rope thing there, that rubber weather strip, is in fact supposed to be at the cowl going corner to corner with those little foam pieces there. But that'll mask, of course, the wiring harness. You're like, man, I never remember seeing that wiring harness. Well, it's because that seal covers it. But trying to snake that intake tube and not make a mess with, I keep the truck very clean. This is a 2001. Here we are, 20 plus years later, and I think I've done a decent job. But again, it's very dusty where I live. That's a culmination of a lot of time on the road, and it's very dusty here. So I'm content with what we did. We shop vacked it, got it on, got our custom made studs set up, got the machine nut on. I love what we did. The height turned out to be great, because you'll note we don't have anything protruding. It looks like we do, but that's just the back side of the thread. So really good there. It did fit with the ridiculously thick gasket. We even run their rubber gasket up top with the oversized fender washer below the knurled nut. I do have Mopar, think old school, like center mount, small block, big block Mopar Mopar Omega M things to put there. No one would see it, especially with that seal. I just decided to eat it, sit on it for another project. But coming off of there, we run down and we snake over, and boom. I was very, very disheartened with myself. I had that second clamp sitting on the cowl of the truck up there, and I was like, oh, idiot. And then again, snaked it in again. This is what happens when you like work ridiculous hours and don't have free time unless you make yourself stay up really late like I do here. And we're to this point. So got that in place. Let me get you over here. Why the screwdriver, you ask, and not a nut driver, which you probably noticed there? It's OCD. When you do things yourself, you get to line up the threads however you want. So I do a lot of particular things right, so the slots line up perfect. They're spaced like I want them. This side here, it's sort of maximum. Yes, you can see the ribs there. I'd prefer the band look like this the whole way. But if I shifted that down to where if you're outside the truck looking in, you saw that, then you would be staring at the head of a fastener. I would rather personally hide the head of the fastener. In terms of our IAT placement, I'd say we almost had it perfect. That harness, I could have turned it, but I was like, you know what, it would be nice to have that release clip right there. So now if I ever need to take this off to pull the filter, chunk it, go back to my cheap Spectre deal, go factory, just change the IAT. I've got it lined up where I've got the disconnect right there on the top side, not the blind side. Right here, our little plastic piece that runs down to the PCV with our 3/8 line. That is totally concealed. I started to make a hose cover for it. We still might. You wouldn't really see it. And I kind of like it just blending right there. Like you wouldn't even know that's there unless you just, oh, hey. You know, we can finally get this out. What was this rag doing? It was to keep me from tattooing Mopar on my palm. That's literally the purpose that it served. Sort of slightly tweaked our heater hoses. And we're back to this. So this piece, I did opt, if you recall, for the extra expensive snorkel that goes out over there by the radiator, and it was unbeknownst to me that you have to relocate horns, and I don't think we're going to mess with that yet. We're going to do it, but we'll do it eventually. I've got the stuff sitting over there on that box, so that'll be for another day. So right now we'll just kind of have this, and sadly, if you buy this intake, which at this point in time, for the price and the issues, I would stay away. I would buy the cheap Spectre. I would do something else. It's just, this was, for the money, pretty disappointing, I have to say. The fitment is not good, in my opinion. The Spectre lined up better. I think Air Raid, I don't know if Air Raid's still around. K&N, I don't know. I don't know if S&B did the gas stuff, still has it or not. Regardless, I would probably advise you not go this. If you're buying it used, you're getting a good price, sure. But they really need to do one of two things. Either tweak this and make it a way better fit everywhere and include the proper hardware, or they just need to come in and like slash the price, because it would account if, you know, you spend, it's like Spectre eBay stuff and you're like, oh, well, it doesn't really fit great, but man, it was only 70 bucks. Can't say that here. You spend a lot of money for the Volant, and you expect to get something better. So again, being Chrysler Mopar all my life, I know what universal means, but this was supposed to be direct fit, and that's laughable at best. So they're very close, to their credit. It's a super cool system. That's why, like, growing up, I was like, man, I'd like to have that intake, but it's too expensive. Yeah, looks cool. Hopefully it functions well, that's the main thing. But again, the reason I deviate from the factory setup, which is kind of cool, it's just a pain in the butt to change the filter. I mean, a complete pain to deal with that. So we'll see how this goes. We can always drop back to the Spectre, try something new, make our own, I don't know, commission something. Who knows what'll happen in the future. But I'm going to get that seal and catch that bolt that's precariously about to drop down by the master cylinder. Thread that thing back over, get it in place, hopefully seat it down And we'll have this buttoned up. I think that's going to end this video. I have had such little time, and I've had to do this in such stupid segments because of missing parts and stuff, and then it takes me forever to get time to get stuff, or I'm waiting on people. You name it. You know how it goes. Again, this isn't like a full-time gig, sadly. I work very long hours, and we're technically not supposed to be busy this time of year, but we're swamped, and my free time reflects that. So I'm content with this. Hopefully everything's good. Again, everything looks decent. It's sealed up. There's another look at that stupid problem there. And yeah, we'll just take it from here. So hopefully this helps you out a little bit. Again, my advice on this, stay away. If you want to go this route, I would email them direct or something and say, hey, I'm going to buy this. I want all the hardware. I want to know that you fix these issues. Why don't you people change things and make it right? Or just, again, get it used for savings or something. And maybe you'll find one in the wrecking yard. Who knows? But cool, but disappointing given the price is how I'd ultimately verdict on this one. But anyway, I'm starving. I'm gonna try to get inside. I'm also getting really cold, and we'll see how this pans out. So stay tuned. Hope you enjoy the Ram Revival here. Again, try to walk you through this to the point that if you watch it, you can replicate what I do. Next time we're out here, we'll hopefully be loading up the tune and seeing if we can't get this thing fired up. So the only big concern I have right now is the fuel rail line, right? Kind of between the fuel rails on the back of the manifold, which is really freaking hard to get to because the cowl overhangs it. You almost wish it was just jumbled up here at the front, you had easy access to it. I guess we technically could do that, but we might if we have issues back there. We'll see. I've heard some of you have had a nightmare of a time. That it was always a problem trying to reuse the factory rubbers, soaking it in boiling hot water. A lot of people buy pre-made braided hose kits and have leaks. A lot of people make their own lines and have leaks. It's something you want to watch very, very, very carefully. Because if that leaks, it's at a terrible spot. It's going to be hard to see. You don't want to just jump out for joy in the road, see what your truck is like, get the stock tune sent in to be revised, see what the cam sounds like, give it a little, none of that. You do not want a fire. You don't want to burn up a harness. You don't want to damage your pin. None of that. You be careful, exercise caution, and again, I've heard from a great many of you who have had issues with that. That's why I'm leery of it. I pressure tested my line. I leak tested the line. I did everything I know to do with the line. It's my first time with PTFE stuff. We'll see. So if I screw this up, I'm hoping I catch it here, and I'm simply going to try to get dimensions over to Frigola and commission them to make it for me. I've got a contact there. I'll see if he'd crank that up. But yeah, I'm going to quit rambling, get inside, warm up. Again, getting close. Just really need time. I think I don't even want to say it because I'll get screwed over if I do. So just need time. And I'm hoping that I get time. So we shall return. We'll check it out. Again, if you're enjoying it, leave a like, leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts, your experience with Volant. If you had it back in the day, if you loved it, if you've run every different intake possible for a 5259 Magnum, what do you rate the best and why? Again, really cool design. That's what drew me to this. And I lusted over this as a kid. I was like, man, I would like to get that for my truck. It's too expensive. And here we are. We have it, and it's just kind of like, oh, I could have done better. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Stay tuned for more content, and we will take it from there. So future stuff, will we go super detailed where you can follow along? Will we just highlight things, and I actually get work done quick and then make a recap video? I don't know. Give me your thoughts there too. But time is my problem, and it's time that I need to do all the cool things I have in my head to all the sweet Mopars in the world. But stay tuned if you're curious what that might be. Again, subscribe and stay tuned for more. But once again, thanks for watching. I hope I catch you back here for more from the Ram Revival.